Good morning, Salem, or good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is while you're watching this here. I'm Ty Hapworth. I'm an at-large city councilor here in Salem, and we're going to do something, I guess, a little bit different here today. I've done candidate introductions for the last 6 years here in Salem, and I cannot think of a way to do it where it's not just a little bit awkward. Josh, I'm sure you did these in the past.
Yes, I did.
By the way, I'm here with Josh Turiel, former Ward 5 city councilor, current member of the planning board. So I can't think of a way to do this where it's not awkward. And whether you're either reading a script up here on a podium, or you're trying to memorize a speech, which always comes off a little bit awkward. So ask Josh if he'd come in here and ask me a couple questions. Maybe the best idea I've ever had, maybe the worst idea I've ever had.
We'll find
out. Josh is very engaged locally here civically, and while Josh may or may not support me, he will not ask me easy questions, I don't think, here today. And I asked Josh to ask me unscripted questions here.
Well, I did write the questions down. I did not give them to you ahead of time.
I have not seen the questions yet, and so I'm looking forward to this. I think I enjoy just a conversation. I enjoy talking local politics. Josh and I are both, I think, local politics nerds. Josh maybe a little bit more than me, but not much more. So I'll give Josh a chance to introduce himself, but before we do that, I'm just going to very briefly, I'm Ty Hapworth. I'm a city councilor here in Salem. Been a city councilor since 2020, ran in 2019, and actually Josh is one of the first, I think, 3 people that I reached out to when I decided I wanted to run the first time, and gave me a little bit of advice, which I appreciated back then. I remember coming on the council the first time and looking at people like Arthur Sargent or Josh or Bob McCarthy, and seeing people who had been on the council for a long time and thinking maybe someday I'll get to that point where I'll be the old guy sitting in the corner. Not that you've ever been an old guy, Josh, but
oh, I was born an old guy.
But I would look at Arthur and I would say, like, I would love to be on the council for 20 years someday and look and be the longest serving councilor. And now we've got to this point where all of a sudden, Conrad, myself, Patty, and Meg are all the longest serving councilors currently, and then potentially, if we're reelected, Conrad and I will be the only 2 left from that group. So just very briefly about me, I'm from rural Maine originally. I like to joke that the town, if you've ever seen the meme on Facebook where it's a picture of a sign in Maine that says cold beer, guns, and wedding dresses, or prom dresses, that's the town that we're from, and that's actually literally where Micah bought her prom dress. My wife Micah bought her prom dress. Came to Salem in 2014 when my daughter was born, decided to run for council in 2019, and here we are today. So I'll hand it over to Josh.
Thanks. So as mentioned, I'm Josh Turiel. I was a city councilor from 2012 to 2022. Happily retired from that, currently serving on the planning board as a volunteer, and still, as Ty mentioned, I am still fairly engaged in local issues because I am a politics nerd. I'm also a general purpose nerd. So, that
makes 2 of us.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I roll. I've never thought of putting a witch hat counter in my window, but I don't have as many of them walking by as you do. So
yeah, well, that was not my idea. That was Bada Bing's idea initially. And I just
it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
So what I did is I've prepared a handful of questions to ask Ty over the next few minutes or so, and he had no idea what I'd be writing. So, and I don't think he can even see the notes in front of me. So, because it's a weird angle. But I'd like to start off with what I think is the easiest question. So when you first ran in 2019, what was your original motivation for running back then? And at the same time, what motivates you to keep doing it?
So I think that's actually a great question. I think, initially I sort of followed local politics when I came to Salem, and I was, like I mentioned, I was a local politics nerd. I think municipal government is the most interesting part of politics because you can actually get stuff done. You know the people you're interacting with. You know your representatives. I think actually early on, one of the first people when we moved to Salem, the first people I followed was Josh on Facebook, and that was when Salem Facebook was maybe a little bit different, where it was a little bit more of a conversation for and against, and it was a good conversation, and Josh kept us informed, and I always looked to that to understand what was happening here locally. I did get a little frustrated, I think, around 2017, 2018, 2019, that time frame when I felt like I was seeing a lot of change happening here locally in Salem that we as a council weren't able to sort of get any traction on around things like housing. Housing was getting increasingly more unaffordable. The city was changing in great ways, but we wanted to ensure that we were moving that direction in a way that made sense for the people that lived here. And also I felt like, at least on the at-large side, I don't think that younger families were represented, or families that lived in the sort of the densest part of the downtown. So I think that was the initial reason for running, and I mean, just on a personal level, I just enjoy it. I enjoy local politics. It's a part-time job for all of us. Most of us have other jobs, but I enjoy this part of it the most. As far as why I want to keep running, I think one of the things that I've seen as national politics gets more and more divisive, and it feels difficult, and it feels almost impossible to watch what's happening on a national stage and not feel frustrated. You can look at what's happening here locally, and you can see actual people talking to each other, and you can see things that are getting done, and you can see compromises that are being made, or you can see progress. And I think a lot of times we have to deal, like, as federal government becomes more and more of something that just can't get moving, can't get things done, doesn't want to get things done actually right now. Local government keeps moving, and local government keeps having to figure out how to put Band-Aids on these problems, how to fix things, and how to get things moving in the right direction. And I enjoy that, and I think that also just it takes a little bit of time to learn what you're doing on the city council. I think you probably remember that when you were on the council, that it takes a little bit of time to sort of watch what's happening around you, and watch how other people are interacting, and watch how things actually get done and how things get moving. And I relish the idea of being one of the more experienced councillors, potentially working with Councillor Prosnewski and Councillor Merkel and Councillor Varela, maybe Councillor Davis, depending on how people get, how the election results all shake out here. Councillor Harvey potentially. Councillor Jordan, sorry, I don't want to leave everybody out, but yeah, depending on what happens with the election, I look forward to working with my colleagues to offer that perspective, to chair different committees. So I think that's what keeps me moving. I think there's a lot of work to get done still. There's zoning reform, there's parking, there's a lot of things that need to happen here locally that I think we're interested in getting done, that I'm looking forward to accomplishing.
Right. So, in your view, what is the role of the city council versus the role of the mayor, and at the same time the role of the city government, the day-to-day city government?
Yeah, I think that there's what's on paper. Mm-hmm. What's on paper is we are the legislative branch of the city. We we create the ordinances, we pass the ordinances, we approve the spending of money, and the mayor is supposed to execute all of that. And that's what's on paper, and that's the way things function. But I think the most important role that the city council plays is we are like the closest level to the people here in Salem, to people where people can reach out. If you've got an issue, you've got a problem, you can reach out to your city council, and like your voices do matter here. This isn't Congress where you write a letter and some intern reads it and you may or may not get a response. If you write an email to your city council, you're going to get a response probably from they're going to read it, they're going to read the actual email, respond to it, look into your issue. And I think that's the most core role that we play, is that we are the touchstone and the closest level of government that you feel here in your life. And I think that's the most important role that we play.
In my days, I referred to as being the ombudsman, basically,
yep.
For your neighborhood or for the city as a whole. So.
Everything, and it's not, yeah. we have a narrow scope of what we can actually do. Like, we don't control what gets built here in Salem generally. We don't control what happens. We don't enforce the laws here. But if you're having an issue with a busker, which we just talked about, if you're having an issue with a busker outside of your window, you can reach out to your city council, and we can work with the police and see what we can do and see what's legal to happen here. And I think that it's just a nice touchstone, I think, for you to have.
So sort of related to that, as an at-large councillor and not being responsible for a particular ward or a neighborhood, how do you look at constituent issues, and how do you deal with addressing them?
Yeah, and what you probably remember is, like, as an at-large councillor, you don't want to step on the ward councillor's toes. So if it's a local issue with, a sidewalk that needs to get fixed, or a trash pickup, or something along those lines, I always loop in the ward council, even if they reach out to me directly, just because I don't want to step on anybody's toes in those situations. But we do have I think as at-large councillors, we have times when we step in to help and support a ward councillor if they want that help and support. And I think oftentimes, because the work of a ward councillor is often harder than I think the work of an at-large councillor, because you get all of that stuff from your neighborhood that comes directly to your mailbox. Always happy to support on those issues. Oftentimes we have a citywide constituency, so it might be, I think people who public safety concerns may reach out to Councillor Prosnewski, because they remember him from when he was in the police department. If people have issues around veterans benefits or veterans issues, they may reach out to me, because I'm the only veteran on the council right now. So we have those situations where we have those sort of citywide concerns or issues. But other than that, we do leave the neighborhood issues directly to the ward councilor if they're comfortable handling it.
Yeah, I'll say that when I was a ward councilor, one of the things that I always found was that being a ward councilor in some ways was more difficult, but also more rewarding, because you could look directly to things and say, I got this taken care of, or I was able to help this person in this neighborhood with this, or this sidewalk patch. Yes, I made the phone call. So I get that approach, and I get seeing the difference there.
And I think you look at the ward councilor role is so difficult. And not, at large is difficult too in its own ways, but you get so much that comes directly to you that it can be overwhelming sometimes. So we're always happy to step in and help where we can in there. But we are supposed to look at things from a citywide perspective when we take our votes.
And that answer leads me very well to what I will follow up with. So how do you address conflicting issues where one group may be particularly impacted? For instance, a project that's in a particular neighborhood where there's going to be some negative impacts on that neighborhood, but it's going to be overwhelmingly positive for the city as a whole. Or similar issues to that. How do you look at those and figure out where to go with them?
Yeah, I think, and I think that's one of the learnings that I've had on the council is that we're often weighing pluses and negatives, and issues are rarely clear cut where it's like, this is definitely the way to go, this is the wrong way to go. There's always, you pick a direction, you pick a vote to make, and it's going to have some negatives, it's going to have some positives, and I think that it's weighing those all up as a city, and that's what the role of the at-large council really is to look at what's best for the entire city. We do defer to the ward councilors on neighborhood issues frequently. If if there's a handicap spot that you want to go in your neighborhood, or you have a traffic ordinance that you want placed that's going to impact a street specifically in your neighborhood, we will defer to the ward councilor there. But on other issues, like things like the condo conversion ordinance, like that's something where we knew that this is going to impact people in Salem positively if you're a renter. And I think that from my perspective, the deck is stacked against the renters. But it also, people own property. It impacts you if you own property here in Salem. We don't take that lightly. I think weighing what's happening all up as a city, who it's going to impact, how things are stacked against those people that are being impacted, I think is important, and I think it's something we all have to weigh.
All right, and as a follow-up to that one, so if you can, take a look at a vote you made or a position that you took on an issue, and then realized after the fact that wasn't the way to go. What do you have for an issue that you have some regret on?
That is an interesting question. I don't know that I can look back on issues where I struggled with it, where I struggled with what direction I wanted to go on an ordinance. A great example, honestly, is probably, I'm not going to say I have regret on this because I still feel this way about it, but the Halloween parking overlay, I can see the other side of this issue, which is you've got cars coming into Salem, they need a place to park. You've got small business owners that are looking to earn some extra money. I completely understand that side of it, and I think weighing that against the impact that would have on the neighborhood, the people who are living there, the encouragement of more cars coming into Salem, I came down on the other side of that issue, but I can see that other side. I can see that perspective and that point of view. And I think that's frequently in Salem right now. And I think right now the issue I struggle with right now is probably something like Shetland Park. Like Shetland Park, I feel a lot of conflict about that project, where I think right now I feel very, very skeptical of that project and of what's happening there, what could potentially happen there, and the potential impacts that could have on that neighborhood. But I see the perspective of people who are like, look, we need the housing. We need it's hard to buy a condo in Salem. It's hard to find housing anywhere in America right now. So if you're going to create 1,000 units, that's a great thing for people potentially. I can understand that perspective, but I worry about the people who live in the point and the impact that could have, I feel, unnaturally on that neighborhood. I worry about a developer who I don't think hasn't convinced me yet is qualified to do that work in that neighborhood right now, and hasn't done a project of that scale, which will be the biggest project we've ever seen in the city. And they say since the Salem Fire wasn't done by a single developer in a single place. This will be the biggest project we've ever had. So I think I weigh those kind of things. I don't know that I look back on a vote where I regret the vote that I took. I feel like I can look back with a clear conscience and say, even if I made enemies on the council in the moment, or if a voter decided they didn't want to vote for me because of a vote I took, every vote I have taken, I have felt that I've taken it with bravery and with confidence and with understanding the issue as fully as I possibly can understand it. And you know, from being on the council, any vote you take, you're going to have potentially 55% of the community happy with you, 45% of the community not happy with you, or vice versa. But I think that if you take those votes with confidence, you explain your reasoning, I think that's the best you can possibly do.
Yeah, that is something that at least when I was doing the job, being able to explain this is what I did and why I did it this way has always been, even if people don't agree with your decision, they generally respect that, okay, you came to it from an honest place. And I think that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that you get this feeling in your head where you're like, if I vote in a way that this person doesn't, if one of my supporters or this person who has reached out to me doesn't agree with, they're going to be upset with me. And I think that most people will understand, like, look, we're not always going to agree on every single issue, and we're going to have points of disagreement. And I think that people can respect somebody who comes to that in an honest way, looking at the issues, because I think that's what we're all doing. None of us are looking to get reelected. It's not our first job. We don't vote in a way that we're worried about what election results would be. We vote in a way that we feel is correct and within the way that we understand the issue.
All right, and then the last thing that I have written down as a question for you, so we can kind of break from here. But what would you say right now about the current political climate in Salem, both in person and online, and in general, with issues and with the issues that are coming at us from the state and federal side?
I think locally, this has probably been the biggest eye-opener for me since 2019 when I ran, is that, and I think like we're seeing this nationally too, that there is an online world that is a funhouse mirror, I think, of what the real world is and what people actually think. And it's very hard to see that if you're in your own house and you're interacting with the same people and you're spending a lot of time online. It's hard to see that's a distorted version of what exists in the real world. And I think that being a local candidate, you have to get out and knock on doors, like 10,000 doors probably per election cycle that most of us, at least in the at-large side, knock on. You hear from everybody. And the interesting thing about that is you don't see those perspectives out in the real world. Like the things that take up space online and take up people's attention and interest and that get people fighting and angry with each other, I don't hear about at the doors. I hear about trash pickup, I hear about sidewalks, sometimes I hear about national issues, and you sometimes will hear some of those kind of conversations, but I think the impetus for people is to find points of agreement. And I think we all feel like that, right? When you're talking to somebody, even if you disagree with them, even if, like, for me, I consider myself pretty progressive. If I'm talking to a Trump supporter, I'm still looking for some places of agreement that we can have. And I think that in the social media world, people are looking to be awful to each other sometimes, to dunk on each other, and it gets amplified by Facebook, who have admitted that they amplify those kind of comments and those kind of things. And I think the end result is we see the worst of each side, or we see the extreme of each side, and we imagine the people who disagree with us as being incomprehensible in some ways. And what you see at the doors is not that. You see people who are reasonable and have reasonable concerns and complaints, whether they agree with what's happening here in Salem or don't. They come about it in a reasonable way. And I think that's been a kind of a heartening thing for me. And I don't know how, like, nationally, how we fix that, because we can't all be knocking on each other's doors and talking to each other. But I think if we get out and we have conversations with real people, even if they disagree with us, I think that's probably the national antidote, and I don't know how we get there. I would say the national politics, initially when I started running in 2019, if I knocked on a door, I would almost never hear about the national issues. I would hear, sometimes it would be, to be frank, sometimes I would hear a Trump supporter who would want to talk only about Donald Trump. And that existed then, and existed in 2021 and 2023. and today in 2025. I'd say this is the first election cycle where I'm hearing the national stuff from people who are more left-leaning and are concerned about things happening nationally because it's impacting us here locally. And I think that's probably a shift lately. And I don't know how we come out of this stuff. I think that there's an answer there, which is in local politics, in talking to each other, in realizing that we can get things done together. And I think that's probably the way out of this at some level. And I think that the issues that we're seeing on the federal level are magnified what we're seeing here locally. We're seeing issues of homelessness that are probably federal issues that are impacting us locally. And I think that the solutions that we come up around housing and homelessness and safe streets and all these kind of issues that we come up here with locally as solutions, I think will filter their way up at some point. I don't know how we get there, but I think that's probably the way that we come out of whatever it is that we're in as a country right now.
So if cities are well managed, then states can be well managed. If states can be well managed, then the federal government could be well managed.
Ideally, yeah. And that's what I tell myself about local politics is that whatever we're doing, whether we're arguing about accessory dwelling units or right turn on red or whatever it is that we're talking about here locally, and whatever it is that we're getting done for people here in Salem, it's proving to people that as a city we can do things together. Like you can look to your government to accomplish things, whether you agree with them or not. We can get things done, and the state can look to that and say, like, this is how we get things done at the state level, and then hopefully at some point the federal government can come out of whatever it's in and start getting things done, because we can't solve these issues all locally. We need a federal government that's actually competent and functional and can do things like public housing and all these issues that we sort of need help on.
So one last question that I didn't write down ahead of time because I thought of it on the fly here is what is your personal approach to, because this is important, especially at the local level and kind of a key to moving forward the rest of the world, what is your approach to coalition building?
When you say coalition building,
if you have an issue that you're passionate about, if you have something you're trying to, what would your approach be to trying to get to that consensus? Bring the other people along, bring the votes, get it to the voters, and get it explained to them, and bring the voters along and bring your colleagues along.
I think there's a couple things there. So the first one is at a citywide level is communicating. I think something that you did very well is communicating the issues to people, whether they agree with you or not. Here's what we're voting on. Here's what the impact will be from my perspective. Here's why I'm voting this way. I've started a newsletter recently, which I think I hope gets some of that out. Just like, here's what's happening in council chambers. Here's how we need your support. We do look to people who we hear from the same, and we love to hear from people who come in and give public testimony. But it's probably the same 10 or so people who come into every meeting and make their voices heard. And when we hear from people who are unexpected or from a different perspective, we all listen. We all want to hear from people who, so if you've got something to say, tune in and say it. It's helpful. So I think communicating that as best that we possibly can is important to us here. As a council, I think that it's important to remember that no matter how much we disagree on an issue, we can find agreement in places. And the issue I love, or the one that I love to bring up frequently is, I think you were on the council then when we took the vote on the signature parks. I think you were on then, yeah. We had what we thought was going to be potentially, we had our best bond rating. Interest rates were low. It was like the perfect time to bond to fix our signature parks. This was 2020 or 2021. I can't remember what year that was that we voted on that.
I think it was, there were a couple different, 2019, 2020.
Yeah. 2020, I guess, would be the one we did. So there was, I think that if some of us didn't have a relationship that was human with Councillor Dominguez, I don't know that he would have been willing to switch his vote. And I don't want to speak for him in that moment, but I think he was leaning in one direction. And I think through conversations, he could kind of see the other side, and he made what I felt like was a brave decision and changed his vote in that moment. And that gave us this funding at the right time with the right interest rates that we're going to benefit for the rest of our lives on these parks, like the Salem Common, the Palmer Cove Park, Forest River, the Salem Willows, Winter Island, all these signature parks that are going to help us for a long time. So I think it's important to take the long view on these issues and realize that as much as we may disagree with our colleagues on an issue, not making it personal is important, because we can disagree on an issue, and then we can walk out of it, and we can still find places where we agree. And I think that's important for us, I think, moving forward.
Great. Well, that's all the stuff I had. If you would like to give a summary or a closing statement to the camera, it's all you.
I want to thank you, Josh, for coming out here and doing this. I did think about, like, who could I bring out here to do this? And you were the first name that I thought of as somebody who would come out and ask me what I felt like would be hard questions or honest questions and have that perspective on it. So I just appreciate that. And if you want to see Josh and I have our own show at some point, just send me an email. I think it could be.
Well, eventually you retire from this too, and then you have time.
It could be the most boring show that's ever existed in local politics. But just appreciate that. The election is November 4th. Every vote matters, as you've seen here in local elections. There's always a race where it's like a one vote difference here. So get out, vote for your ward councillor, vote for your at-large councillor, and the mayor's on the ballot, but he is unopposed in this election. So get out and vote, and just appreciate.
We do have a dog mayor now.
We do have a dog mayor. That's right.
Our pets, sadly, were not.
Yeah,
did not make
both.
it.
Yours was not actually a dog.
No, mine was a cat running for dog mayor.
Yeah, so we did have, and those dog mayor signs do get a lot of attention right now. So, but I just appreciate you tuning in here, and hopefully you vote on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you all.